Welcome to the Disney vs. Battles, a series focusing on characters from the Disney universe, analyzing their combat skills and abilities in a side-by-side comparison to determine who would win in a hypothetical battle. Today's matchup will be Maleficent, the Mistress of Evil, versus Ursula, the power-hungry Sea Witch. For this battle, I will be observing both combatants during the events of their first appearance. For Maleficent, this will be during the events of Sleeping Beauty. For Ursula, this will be during the events of The Little Mermaid. I will not be using anything from a video game or any other non-canon sources. With all that out the way, let's begin. Born as a dark fairy in the Forbidden Mountain, Maleficent lived in a ruined castle at the top of the mountain's peak. As a result of her isolation, Maleficent ruled her kingdom with an iron fist, harnessing her dark magic and plotting schemes against King Stefan. During a ceremony celebrating the birth of Princess Aurora, three good fairies named Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather arrive at the castle to bless the child with gifts. However, Merryweather loses her chance to bless the child when an outraged Maleficent appears in the throne room. Angered that she wasn't invited, Maleficent places a curse on the king's daughter, stating before the sun sets she will die on her 16th birthday after pricking her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel. However, Merryweather managed to reduce the curse to a deep slumber. After 15 years have passed, Princess Aurora's 16th birthday finally arrives. As a result, Maleficent sends her pet raven Diablo to find her after punishing her minions for their failure to capture the princess. During his search, Diablo discovers that the princess is living in a cottage in the woods with the three good fairies posing as a girl named Briar Rose. Once the princess returns to the castle, Maleficent waits until Aurora is alone and lures her to a spinning wheel. Seizing the moment at hand, Maleficent uses her hypnotic powers to convince Aurora to touch the spindle. As a result, the princess falls to the ground after pricking her finger. Shortly after the princess is motionless on the floor, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather discover they have failed to protect Aurora when Maleficent mocks them and reveals her lifeless body right before their eyes. As the fairies tend to the king's daughter, the Mistress of Evil travels back to her castle, ordering her minions to wait in the cottage and capture Prince Philippe. Upon his arrival, Philippe is then ambushed by Maleficent's henchmen and brought back to her castle's dungeon. Not long after his capture, Maleficent visits the prince, taunting him with knowledge of Aurora's condition, stating he would be free to exit her domain within 100 years in order to wake up the princess with a kiss. As the prince struggles to break free of his chains, Maleficent vanishes from the dungeon and heads to her tower to get some sleep. After the good fairies discover Philippe's hat in the cottage, they soon realize that Maleficent had him kidnapped and head to the Forbidden Mountain. Using their magic to melt the dungeon lock, the fairies rescue the prince from his captivity, arming him with two enchanted weapons, the Sword of Truth and the Shield of Virtue. As the prince makes his daring escape, Maleficent's goons begin to attack. Dodging the bulk of their assault, Philippe manages to flee from the castle with the good fairies. Due to the commotion caused by the prince, Maleficent emerges from her slumber. Angered by the current state of events, the Mistress of Evil began shooting lightning from her staff, in addition to conjuring a forest of thorns. However, Philippe still manages to escape. During the final battle between the Mistress of Evil and the heroic prince, Maleficent transforms into a fire-breathing dragon. Near the climax of their confrontation, Philippe stabs Maleficent with the Sword of Truth, ending her life in the process. Once a respected member of King Triton's royal sea court, Ursula was banished from the underwater city when it was discovered she planned to overthrow his kingdom. As a result, Ursula began to practice dark magic and established herself as a beacon of hope to unfortunate merpeople, making business deals and propositions, claiming she can make their dreams come true as long as they're able to complete their task. In the following years, the Sea Witch spent her time spying on Triton's family, waiting for her chance to exploit their weaknesses and take the king's throne. When the king's youngest daughter, Ariel, falls in love with a human prince named Eric, the power-hungry Sea Witch orders her minions to lure the child to her lair. During Ariel's visit, Ursula offers her a chance to become a human for 3 days. Once Ariel manages to receive the kiss of true love from Eric, her transformation into a human would become permanent. However, if she fails to succeed, the mermaid would become bound to Ursula for all eternity. In order to complete the agreement, Ariel learns she must give up her voice. As a result, the mermaid agrees and allows her to collect her voice. After Ariel signs the contract and becomes a human, Ursula orders her minions to ruin the mermaid's chance of kissing Eric. Once Ursula realizes Ariel might succeed in obtaining her happiness, the power-hungry Sea Witch transforms into a beautiful human named Vanessa. With the aid of her dark magic, Vanessa placed Eric in a trance and forced him to marry her. During the wedding, Ariel's seagull companion named Scuttle manages to stall the ceremony when he invites a few of his friends to crash the party. Amidst the chaos of Scuttle's interference, the necklace worn by Vanessa, which held Ariel's voice, was broken. As a result, the mermaid's voice returned to its owner. Before the couple were able to kiss, Ariel is transformed back into a mermaid, and Ursula returns to her original form. As the guests begin to panic, the Sea Witch kidnaps her adversary's daughter. Not long after her escape, the Sea Witch is confronted by an angry King Triton. Once Ursula reveals her true intentions, Triton is forced to sacrifice his freedom in order to save his daughter. However, Ursula turns him into a polyp. Once Ursula has stolen the trident, a furious Ariel attacks the Sea Witch for her cruelty, but she retaliates by throwing the little mermaid into a rock. As the fight comes to an end, Ursula prepares for her final attack. However, Ariel is saved by Eric after he shoots the Sea Witch in her arm. After ordering her minions to capture the prince, Ursula attempts to kill him with an energy bolt. Due to Ariel's interference, Ursula misses her target and kills her henchman in the process. Because of this, the power-hungry Sea Witch seeks vengeance on the Little Mermaid, using her powers to magically alter her size in the form of a giant. As a result of her new powers, Ursula summons a deadly storm in order to eliminate her enemies. As the couple tries to escape, Ursula traps Ariel in a whirlpool, declaring herself as ruler of the ocean. Before releasing her most destructive blast, the Sea Witch loses her life after she is impaled by Eric's boat and struck by lightning. Maleficent wields a magical golden scepter made of birchwood surmounted by an engraved lotus bearing a crystal orb. As a dark fairy, Maleficent developed her skills in the dark arts, practicing a number of combative abilities, in addition to casting powerful dark spells. In battle, the Mistress of Evil uses incredibly strong dark magic to overwhelm her opponents with an onslaught of mystical energy. Maleficent is also capable of transforming into a fire-breathing dragon. In the midst of combat, Ursula wielded the trident, a three-pronged magical spear made of pure gold. In her base form, Ursula is capable of casting a variety of spells. However, most of her powers lack a combative application and are heavily dependent on a contract. Although her experience in combat is limited, Ursula managed to wield the destructive power of the trident. In battle, Ursula uses powerful magic to manipulate the weather. The Sea Witch also possesses the ability to alter her size. In terms of their combat skills, both women have displayed an impressive amount of skill in the use of magic. However, Maleficent has much more experience in combat, having trained herself in offensive and defensive techniques. Despite the Sea Witch holding a similar level of experience in dark magic, prior to stealing the trident, Ursula hasn't shown any combative abilities. When it comes to their weapons, both combatants use very powerful objects. Maleficent's staff provides her with a variety of magical abilities, while the magic in Ursula's trident is much more destructive. The question regarding which weapon is superior comes down to quantity versus quality. Although the trident has a superior destructive capacity, the spear has never been capable of producing a sufficient measure of defense and has only been capable of manipulating the ocean as well as the weather. Maleficent's method of fighting, in addition to her use of the golden scepter, proved to be more practical and effective. Maleficent gets the edge in combat skills and weaponry. In her base form, Maleficent possesses an average level of strength and hasn't shown any significant feats in terms of striking power. As a dragon, Maleficent's physical strength increases to a superhuman level. Currently, Maleficent's maximum speed is unknown. However, Maleficent is capable of reaching superhuman speeds during flight and has displayed an aptitude for teleportation, using her powers to transport herself from one place to another with ease. Despite having a plethora of magical abilities at her disposal, Maleficent is not particularly agile. In her dragon form, Maleficent is virtually indestructible. The only force capable of penetrating her skin is enchanted items or weapons. Maleficent possesses the ability to manipulate a massive amount of fire and is capable of using it for offensive and defensive measures. With the aid of dark magic, Maleficent is capable of producing a celestial storm at will, delivering a maelstrom of lightning bolts to devastate her opponents. Maleficent is capable of achieving flight by transforming into an orb of magical energy. In this form, the Mistress of Evil can move at superhuman speeds. It is currently unknown how fast she is able to fly. During her battle with Prince Philippe, the Mistress of Evil managed to create a forest of thorn bushes that were extremely large and durable. The only objects that are able to penetrate the branches are enchanted items such as the Sword of Truth. In her final battle, Maleficent transformed into a large fire-breathing dragon. In this form, the Mistress of Evil is capable of breathing acid green fire that can melt solid stone with ease, and is strong enough to knock enchanted items out of its owner's hands. Maleficent also possesses superhuman strength in her dragon form. As a dragon, the Mistress of Evil is immune to fire and conventional weapons. In her base form, Ursula hasn't displayed any impressive feats of strength. After the Sea Witch absorbs the energy of the trident, her strength increases to superhuman levels. It's currently unknown how much damage she can cause in terms of striking power. When it comes to her speed on land or in the water, the power-hungry Sea Witch is very slow in her movement due to her weight and tentacles hindering her performance. Ursula has never been depicted possessing any form of agility in combat. Much like her strength, Ursula's durability is greatly increased in her giant form. However, she is not indestructible. Unlike Maleficent, the power-hungry sea witch can be harmed by conventional weapons. With enough force from a large object, Ursula's skin can be penetrated. Due to the power held in the trident, the sea witch is able to shoot her enemies with destructive energy bolts. Each ray of energy has enough force to break through solid stone with ease. Ursula possesses the ability to control the ocean, causing massive tidal waves and hurricanes, in addition to creating whirlpools in order to drown her opponents. In her base form, the sea witch has the power to transform merfolk into polyps if they fail to complete a deal. No matter how strong the person may be, once the contract has been signed, Ursula can easily turn a client into a polyp. With the aid of the trident, Ursula is capable of altering her size, transforming into a giant. Ursula has displayed an ability to transform into a human after mixing potions. It's currently unknown whether she can take the form of anything outside her human appearance, or if she's capable of producing extra abilities with the aid of her potions. In terms of their physical abilities, both combatants are said to have superhuman strength based on the size and mass of their final forms. However, neither villain has been shown using their strength in combat, which makes it impossible to determine who is the stronger fighter. If we compare them based on their size and mass, Ursula is larger than Maleficent, and given her massive weight, the sea witch is potentially stronger in terms of striking force. When it comes to speed and agility, Maleficent has the ability to move faster than Ursula due to her mastery of teleportation. Despite Ursula's gigantic appearance, Maleficent's dragon form possesses a higher level of durability and is immune to conventional weapons, unlike her adversary, who was impaled by a boat during her final battle. Due to her pyrokinetic abilities, Maleficent has enough power to burn the sea witch. However, Ursula's command over the ocean is stronger, possessing enough force to douse her flames. When it comes to energy manipulation, both combatants are seemingly equal. However, Maleficent can produce a larger amount of lightning without any apparent effort. Due to the trident's limitations, Ursula hasn't been able to produce more than one stream of energy bolts at a time. Although Ursula is capable of turning merfolk into polyps, this power has only worked through the use of a contract. Maleficent's mastery of chlorokinesis would be useless against an opponent who battles in the ocean. Ursula's ability to transform without the trident is heavily dependent on magic potions, none of which are combative in nature. Due to the circumstances of this fight, Maleficent's ability to fly gives her a significant advantage. When it comes to their final forms, Maleficent is much more durable, possessing a higher level of energy projection with her acid fire. Despite Ursula's superior strength and size, the Mistress of Evil has far more advantages in terms of physical combat. Maleficent gets the edge for powers and abilities. After analyzing their combat skills and abilities, it's clear a fight between these villains would come down to magic versus magic. This fight will take place on neutral ground, with 70% land and 70% water, in addition to several small towers floating in the water. There will be no prep time. Once the fight begins, Maleficent shoots a bolt of lightning, but Ursula counters her attack with an energy bolt. As the fight continues, the villains clash in a duel of energy versus lightning, deflecting and blocking each other's moves. After their powers collide for the last time, Ursula summons a hurricane to kill Maleficent. Before the hurricane reaches her tower, the Mistress of Evil teleports behind the Sea Witch and causes a thunderstorm to distract her. As Ursula turns to block the attack, Maleficent transforms into a dragon. Once the storm is over, the Sea Witch launches a stream of energy, which is then met by the power of Maleficent's acid fire. As their energies clash, Maleficent's fire quickly overpowers the Sea Witch, knocking the trident out of her hands. Desperate to survive, Ursula grabs the dragon by the throat and prepares for her final attack. Maleficent bites the Sea Witch with her venomous fangs, causing her to open her hand. As a result, Maleficent unleashes a massive amount of fire, melting Ursula in the process. I declare Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, the victor. In a duel of magic versus magic, Ursula is a powerhouse, utilizing the destructive force of the trident. However, she lacked a sufficient amount of combat experience and was far too limited in her scope of abilities. As a result, the Sea Witch was painfully predictable in her movements. In contrast, Maleficent practiced a variety of combative abilities, applying each method in a strategic manner to overwhelm her opponents. Ursula's lack of versatility, in addition to her predictable method of fighting, caused her to lose this match. This has been the Disney vs. Battle series. I have been your host, the Mighty Quan. Thanks for watching. After participating in an unknown war, Phoebus de Chateaupierre is summoned to Paris in order to serve as Judge Claude Frollo's captain of the guard. Not long after his arrival in Paris, Phoebus comes across the beautiful dancing gypsy known as Esmeralda. Smitten with her beauty, Earth is filled with a vast number of cultures, traditions, and customs derived from the minds as well as the actions of one of its most interesting inhabitants, humans.